Hey, good evening, everybody. So, one of the things beyond just PC wargaming and simulations, I like board wargaming. And so, this video is going to be about the GMT Games Next War Series, specifically the Korean Next War Korea 2nd Edition. And just a pretty quick video to go over a couple mistakes I made early on playing the game and just kind of help some other people out so you don't make those same mistakes. So it's not going to be how to play, so if you don't have experience with this game, this isn't the video for you. I can probably do a video later of some gameplay and everything. It is definitely, with the advanced rules and then the supplemental rules, a very complex game series. It takes quite a bit to run through each turn. But I'd say that the game designers are very quick to respond to questions and everything on Boardgamegeek and other places they're at. But there's definitely, like I said, it's definitely on the complex side. So one of the first mistakes I made, one of the big ones, when you look at the terrain effects chart, hopefully this comes through okay. But what you're going to see is they list that as flat. That is flat woods. This is rough. And this is highlands. So looking at this picture, what they show is rough terrain. You see a lot of what I would consider what looks like rocky terrain. And then highlands just looks like a darker shade of that. So when I look at this, what I thought was rough terrain was this stuff here, like 30 to 11. I thought this was rough woods. I didn't see anything that I thought was highland terrain or highland woods. So all of this I considered rough. And then this would be mountainous. So what I found out through some clarification is anything this shade, 3008, 3108, that is rough terrain. Rough woods would be 2311, and this is on the south side of the map. So it's south 2311. South 2213, another rough woods. This stuff here, like 3211 on the south, this is highlands. 3911, highland woods. 3413, highlands. 3315, highland woods. 3014 south, rough terrain. So the only flat terrain, so I was counting this as flat and this is flat. Only 2209 and 2208 is flat. This is rough. So definitely a mistake I made early on when interpreting terrain effect charts. And to be quite clear, when you look at it, this picture probably isn't the best example to give somebody of what rough or rough woods looks like. But they use one terrain effect charts across multiple game systems. Every map may look a little different. On the topic of the map, one thing I overlooked pretty well was these right here. This dot that my mouse is hovering around, those are towns. Town. So 3108, town. 2512, town. If you were to look, and it's not, it's on the combat resolution table, a town gives a modifier for the defender. The combat resolution table is the one piece that they do not put on the internet. So out of respect for them, I'm not going to display that Everything else is available for download on their website. So out of respect, I'm not going to display that. But these towns do represent a modifier. Just as, installations would. Just as which cities, which would be a different modifier. So, and then of course urban, which would be something like 3021. This would be on a different line on the combat resolution table. Cities would have a modifier, which would be 2 shifts to the left. And then you have your towns, you have your fortifications, and this would be DMZ fortifications. So not only would this provide a combat shift column-wise, it also will provide once you roll the dice, a modifier of a +1 for the defender. This is what separates these DMZ fortifications from normal fortifications. Anything with this spike circle with the spikes is a fortification. It's going to provide the 2 column shifts to the left, but the DMZ fortifications are also going to provide a +1. Another thing I made a mistake of on these DMZ fortifications, they do have to go through not a clearing operation, but they will. You would want to put a marker here once they have been basically occupied by the enemy. So that's where you see the DPRK's basically, I don't know, ownership mark or whatever. So they had previously had a unit in there and it changed hands. So remember, towns provide a modifier, cities provide a column shift, urban provides a different line on the combat resolution table. So easy mistake to make. These are airfields. So like 2811 North, airfield. Look, well, it's covered up here, but this symbol right here, air base. So that's an air base versus an airfield. It's a little more clear, not as likely to make a mistake there, but here's a good call out. Big question I see I asked a lot, and one question I had that I had to look several times. If you look across these key hexes, you see these faint white lines. These are not bridges. What these are, they are symbolic that there is a special rule in the game-specific rule for the Next War Korea. What those are let me pull up the map. Okay, game-specific rules. I don't know what happened to my thing. I have lost the ability to click and drag. So. Alright, let's try this again. So under the game-specific rules, under 15.1 air cushion vehicles, 2 basically North Korean light infantry brigades per friendly movement segment may use air cushion vehicles to cross specified all-water hex sides. To utilize air cushion vehicle transport, the unit must begin the friendly movement segment in one of the following hexes. It calls out those hexes that I just showed. The unit can then utilize the air cushion vehicles to cross one all-water hex side into an adjacent enemy hex that is free of enemy ground units. Possible movement paths are marked on the map. The move costs a light infantry unit 3 movement points regardless of terrain or enemy zone of controls. This does provide 5 victory points to the allied side because it is an optional rule. So, Take that back off. So units from here, that's their options, or those white lines of where they can go to. So you see here, we have this unit here has. Of course, they're now isolated and out of supply. So can put you in a precarious position, force you to try to do emergency supply like we have in these here. So we have a unit out of supply along with one that's in emergency supplies. Cruise missiles is another one. So if you look at the, find the section, there's gosh, there's so many, so many rules. It is hard to find. Let's go. I think it's going to be page 11. Whoops! Just lost everything. Come on, man. Okay, so under cruise missiles, it'll tell you each People's Republic of China H6, 222, US B-52H, US B-1B, and the B-2A, and the Russian Tu-95 can launch one cruise missile attack per game turn. Move the air unit used immediately to the flown box. No interception or air defense fire is allowed. The PRC can make one cruise missile attack per strike phase from bases in China. So, what's not clear here is this doesn't allow you to do one cruise missile attack per available plane. It allows you to use these planes as the platform if you have the cruise missile points. So you have to have the cruise missile points to expend. These are just the platform. So unlike Scuds, with cruise missiles, you have to use a platform to fire it. So if you had no available B-52s, no B-1s, no naval units, you would not be able to launch a cruise missile strike. You have to have the capacity to launch one of these. What these do is they give you the capacity to launch them. Now, having said that, I believe it's in Supplemental Rule 3 that there is an optional rule now that allows you to make one free cruise missile strike. Just to make it a little more complicated. It's never going to be easy. So right here, so I was right. Under 4.6, as a Supplemental Rule 3, extremes range missiles. Once per strike phase, both sides can use this rule to conduct a cruise missile attack using a single unlimited range air unit without expending a cruise missile point. Apply an additional 1+ damage roll modifier to the strike. So you're not going to expend a cruise missile point. That's the only instance where you would not expend a cruise missile point. So if you're using one of those other platforms, you've got to have the available cruise missile points. If you look at this current game turn, I have 4 available cruise missile points. So if I had the availability, I could fire them. Coincidentally enough, I do not, because I had just rebased my strategic bombers from Guam to Japan. one thing I didn't catch in Guam is the first time I started to play a couple turns. When you're in Guam and you run a mission, you have to go to the recovery box, not the flown box, unless you're boarded. So, from recovery to flown, then to the ready box. So you can only fly a sortie every other turn. Rebasing in Japan, it eliminates that. Difference being that North Korea, even without Chinese intervention, without the house rules for Chinese medium-range missile strikes, with just North Korea is not going to be able to strike Guam. So, whereas they can strike South Korean air bases and they can strike Japan's basing box, holding box. And I can tell you from personal experience, your air bases in South Korea are going to take a pounding. So you can see several strike markers and or destroyed markers on South Korean air bases. So any planes you base in South Korea, just expect that you're going to lose quite a few squadrons. So let's see here. One key note as well, these fortifications are not installations. So under the rules for installations, they do not include fortifications. Fortifications have their own rules. And the last, really the last thing I have is, one question I had was, say a headquarters unit is part of a stack that's defending. I don't think I have an example right now. Even where headquarters is stacked with one of its units. Well, but let's say in this instance here, we have a headquarters unit and we have a unit subordinated to it. So if this unit here was, if this headquarters unit was in this stack with this unit and it was being attacked by this North Korean unit, the defensive its defensive score, which this one having a strike 1 on it, it'd be a 1, would be added to the defense of this unit, an 8, so it'd give you a 9. But also, due to the rules, I asked the designer, can it provide combat support in the same combat that it's actually defending in? And yes, it can provide combat support to a unit that's subordinate to it, even if it's defending with that unit in the same hex. So if these units are in the same hex and it was being attacked, it would give you that defense score of a 9 because it's under a strike 1 marker. It could also provide, if it has an available support mission, the combat support modifier of 4. So that would take that 9 to a 13 defense value. So wasn't sure about that one because I thought with it being part of it's being actively defending, can it also provide combat support while actively defending? In this circumstance, yes it can. So that was some stuff I had some, I'd say, a little bit lack of clarity on. So I'm going to produce a few more videos. This is a great game system. It's very, very complex, and I think it does a very good job of modeling multi-domain next war type scenarios. And especially now they've started to introduce space domain with satellite communications. The newest rules for cyber warfare under the supplement 3 are fantastic. And so I think it's a living rule set, and it is really, really coming together. Very complex. The one recommendation I'd have for the game designers, just to do one full rule book for the advanced rules and one rule book for the standard rules. The way they have it divided now between standard rules and then advanced rules, it's very complicated. You got to flip back and forth. I would just do 2 separate rule books. Of course, that would drive up cost. Even if it's just an electronic version, I can tell you that flipping through the manuals is an endless task, because some parts of the rules for the advanced are still going to be, so you have to have some of the standard rules even to apply to the advanced rules. So a lot of back and forth, but very rewarding system. So hopefully this helps out anybody that's getting started with it, and I want to encourage everybody, if you watch this video, if you like the content, please subscribe, please like, leave me a comment. Appreciate it. Good evening. Have a great night.